Namaste, everyone, and welcome to the Trannabis Kitchen, episode 53, here in the Trannabis Kitchen headquarters in Los Angeles. I am Chef Trannabis, aka Jamie London Wahlberg. My pronouns are he, him, and I am super excited for this very special fall episode where we are going to dive in to not only a delicious treat, but some serious gems having to do with medical cannabis with our special guest, Dr. Benjamin Caplan. And before we invite him on, we're going to go over our recipe of the evening, which is going to be a gluten and dairy-free pumpkin bread donut cake recipe that is going to be, of course, infused with sponsor Fruit Slābs. Shout out to Fruit Slābs. They are a vegan, organic, gluten-free, kosher certified, no preservatives added, organic fruit leather. This is an edible that is healthy, it is an edible that is discreet, and it is an edible that is versatile. I love working with it in the kitchen. Comes in many different flavors. They're about to list a whole new slew of flavors out to you. They come in THC, CBD. You can go to fruitslabs.com and fruitslabscbd.com to learn all about them. We are working with the OG mango flavor, 10 milligrams per a square, and I've already minced them up right here. So what we have going on is we've got our donut molds here. We're going to be brushing them with some oil to make sure it doesn't stick. We're going to be candying some walnuts using just this organic mountain forest honey. And we are going to do that, putting that as the base. The minced fruit slabs are going to go down, and then we're going to be pouring in our filling. We're separating our dry and our wet ingredients, which we are going to get into. And I just wanted to go over this so that way when we bring Dr. Caplan on, we can really dive right into his story and discussing all things medical. But before we do, we have to get to a very important part of the show, which is that before I cook intuitively, I make sure that I'm connecting with my plant spirit, with all of the ingredients that are going into this meal, so that I'm infusing it with love, so that I'm sending gratitude and asking for healing from all of these nutrients, especially our plant medicine. And if you are cooking along, baking along right now, I encourage you to join me in doing this. Just going to close my eyes. Take some slow, deep breaths. My body's vibrating. Sending love and gratitude to the fruit slabs, to the plant spirit, for giving healing and joy and nutrients to all who get to indulge and enjoy these delicious pumpkin bread donut cakes. Thankful for the abundance of nutrients in all these ingredients, being able to bring all of you this education in an entertaining way, ending the stigma of cannabis with the help of all of you and everything that is here. Asking for my guides, angels, ancestors, all of the above with Source to come and support me in creating this meal. Thank you, and I love you. Namaste. Beautiful. So, with that said, we are ready to go. We are going to invite on our very special guest. And I see you here, Dr. Caplan, but I do not see you on the other link, the link that I had sent you. Did you get that email? I want to make sure that I bring you on both screens at the same time. That's kind of the goal. We will bring Dr. Caplan up on here. That is in your email. It's an email that I sent about 20 minutes ago. So it takes 2 seconds for you to set up. That'll be on your other device, if you recall. So you're going to stay here on this Instagram, and then the other device is going to use that link. And you're just going to want to make sure that the volume is up on this device where you're talking to me now, and then low on the other one. So in the meantime, while we are waiting for Dr. Caplan, you're okay. So we've got you here. I see you now. All right. Should have the one on Instagram. Did that go through? Is Instagram working? And welcome, official all-time high. And Carolyn, we're in our process. We've just done our prayer over our ingredients. We're just attempting to get Dr. Caplan on Instagram here. Oh, it says you are unable to join. We're still in this retrograde shadow. There we go.
Looks like it works for me.
Yes. Oh, except for some reason your screen is dark on the other one.
Oh, strange. Do we need them both up at the same time?
Yeah, they're going to totally different locations.
I don't know.
It'll show up eventually. So you may, here, let's see. If I remove you, I'll remove you, and then you can just add it again. Because this is only Instagram, and that's going to Facebook, Twitter, Twitch.
All right. Well, we can try this.
There we go.
At 2 angles.
Success.
Okay.
Fantastic. Welcome to the Trannabis Kitchen. It's an honor to have you. How are you doing today?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. It's a great day today, man. In Boston, it is sunny and gorgeous, and I am living a fulfilled life. You know, in horrible times where so many of us are suffering, it's a privilege to be in a position of helping. So, like you, we help in different ways in the same arena.
Well, I'm just so grateful for what you're doing. I feel very passionate about the medical and cannabis communities coming together, being someone that, waves in both personal and professional life into them. Can you please share with everyone a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Of course. Yeah, no, happy to. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm Dr. Caplan. I'm a family doctor, board certified family doc. Your typical licensed, boring primary care doctor, but except I realized before the party started that there was something I didn't know about cannabis, and I was early to the party. A lot of doctors trained the cannabis pathway to addiction, and just a mess, for patients, which is really ultimately the backwards reality. But it is still the dominant reality. And I realized that because my patients taught me that wasn't true. I had thousands of primary care patients, and many of them were open enough, comfortable enough to talk to me and tell me about their cannabis use and how it was helping them. And I was young and innocent and smart enough to listen. And it changed my career. I mean, I've been so fulfilled in a career which has really been not only in clinical care for cannabis, where I'm seeing patients and taking care of people, but I'm also a businessman. How the business world works and what guidance and leadership they need in the medical side of things. So my life now is a beautiful mixture of clinical care, serving people, and business where I'm leading companies to do the right thing and showing them that there's more to being a successful company than money. That there are people out there who need their guidance as a corporation, as a business, to do the right thing by people. And you know what? Money actually follows, so that they can do the right thing motivated by helping people, instead of just trying to make more money. Like the old saying goes, if you build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm really happy that you're coming from a soulful place of wanting to do well by doing good. It's something that definitely aligns with me, and I think it's something. Do you find that that's misunderstood by a lot of people, not only in the industry, of course, but in the medical side of the industry? That people are, yeah. And in other words, do you find that patients or in general consumers are lacking trust within those in the medical side?
Yeah, I don't think that mistrust is misplaced. I think it's spot on. The system is broken. Um, we once had a medical system where doctors who were really known as shamans would really care about you and do a dance, if that was going to help you and really connect with you as a person. And that medical industry evolved into an arrogant, egocentric, the doctor is God kind of world, and it's so broken and doesn't work for healing people. Partly because it's not all about the testing and the imaging and the lab reports and the pharmaceuticals. That's not what medicine is about. And I think people in our day and age, people are starting to realize that we have to care about people, that there's more than just work and money. There's a level of emotion, connecting with the sensory world around why we're all done food. That people are tired of just getting a blank answer or being treated like an illness. People are hungry for connection and relationships, and they're not getting that out of traditional medicine. So I think back to your question, are people right, or what is the mistrust of doctors all about? I think it's honestly it's a misunderstanding of what people are looking for in their doctors.
That makes a lot of sense. Sorry, I'm reaching for a spoon here. The expectations that are had versus where things are, and of course, what I look forward to talking about in a bit is like where things are at in terms of understanding of cannabis and how it's being snail's pace worked in to the medical industry. But before that, I imagine that somewhere woven in through your whole medical story and growing up, that cannabis sort of potentially woven one way or another. I mean, you ended up here implementing that aspect. That's a bold move very early on the curve. What's your cannabis story? How did you get here?
So it's a funny story. Nerdy, straight edge guy. Like I played by the rules. I did what I was told. To some degree, in a Jewish, pretty respectable Jewish culture, but actually went to a Catholic school as well. So I got a healthy dose of repression and good discipline on both sides. I actually came into cannabis purely from the outside. I really saw, as a clinician, the incredible opportunity, and it came to me because I was reading. You know, I was new out of medical school in the suburbs of Boston, and were telling me about their. I was, everybody loves about their there's plenty of research. And I had the luxury of time and I had the sort of the sense of justice to do what I thought was right, which was to teach myself a new field of medicine. And you know, part of that is book learning, and part of that is that you have to learn with patients, be with people who are going through it, learn from. There are a lot of people who learn about cannabis through their own experience. As a physician, I can't trust my own opinions. I need to learn what else is out there. I need to know what is sort of objective in terms of studies that are formalized, taking all emotion and all bias out, at least ideally. And then I also want to learn from regular people and what they're experiencing. So now I do both. You know, I have a company which is all about educating, and for people that are here and interested in learning about cannabis, basically the world's largest library of literature. Anybody that's free. And I also where I'm reaching people and learning from them one-on-one. So for me, it's part of learning.
Wow. I mean, that's definitely a different story than a lot of what's heard here, but I actually resonate with so much of what you said. Minus the Catholic school, come from a Eastern European Jewish background, and was also totally played by the rules and like hated cannabis or anything having to do with these terrible drugs that were, you know, ruining the world. Until I was 19. So I mean, yeah, that's I honor your journey, and I think that's, you know, it's my favorite part of every episode of the Trannabis Kitchen is having people share their stories, because I think that that's what's so impactful for people to realize that you can have, you know, a totally different journey.
For sure. And I think there are differences that bring us together, and I think we are blessed living, you know, not only the hardship that we're all going through culturally. I think it's just to start learning that people have a little bit of distrust authority, but really look for management and don't sort of like that. And we need to open to be more accepting.
Yeah, it's being, you know, open-minded, and you know, people get afraid, and then they just cut that door right off. Mm-hmm. So what was the response from your colleagues and from your family when you started implementing cannabis in your practice?
Yeah, no, it's a fun question. So colleagues were all very skeptical. I mean, they had the same training I did. Like, why would you do this? You know, it's evil lettuce, or, you know, whatever. And then, I mean, the funny part, of course, you know, fast forward today, you know, 5 years later, in some degree, 10 years later from when I first sort of started dipping my toes in things, and everybody's interested in a job. You know, all my colleagues are like, "We're making what? You're helping what? Your schedule is how?" Yeah, I mean, everybody's interested. But you know, my colleagues were very skeptical and very, I mean, just advising me against it. You know, it seems too far out of the box. How would I ever do that and keep a noble reputation? My was always supportive, and that's the value of having a family that is, you know, that they knew I'm always, you know, I'm someone who I want what is right. I'm not stand up for. nobody else really kind of. They need to learn and to to be there for people to use the skills that I've been sort of. And when it's familiar and that's you're in a new arena, if you're using your perspective of passion, you can only. I think it does like on something that you love. People are curious. People want to learn from you because of your passion, because they see your. It's the same with.
I mean, I think it's great that you got the amount of support you did, at least from your family. I mean, I have to say I'm not surprised by your response. I mean, I see what happens even when I have my Western medical team and I bring up cannabis or especially dare I say like psilocybin, and I could just watch it's like either deer in the headlights, which I can tell is one of two things usually. It's the extreme of totally know what you're talking about and you're super right about this, but we're not going to acknowledge it because of the legality.
Yeah.
Or
don't know
anything at all. I had a doctor ask me what psilocybin was, and I was like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So I think you're paving the way, and hopefully people will follow suit into what you're doing. Let's see, we have a question. What advice do you have for a young graduate who wants to go in the cannabis industry? I'm a young graduate who would like to get into the cannabis industry. I have an introductory training in terpenes, phenols, GCMs, and LCMs.
Okay, so it sounds like maybe, and the advice is from as many as you can. You yourself as a sort of experiential learning, I don't tend to recommend actually. I think the industry is rich in people who know a lot from their own personal experience. And I think that's not the way a professional can be and succeed. I think there are hard limits on what you can tell, what you can break. And that's a hard lesson actually. I think people, because they've lived a hard life and they're experienced in one way or the other, they think that they're an expert in everything and that they can sort of have in other domains around which because they know so much about their own lane. I think that's deceptive. So learning a lot, I think, studying what other people have learned, build on what knowledge is already there. And there's a lot. I mean, more than any of us can learn already has been learned before us. But taking a piece of that and sort of what strikes you and what is your path. Terpenes, to get super granular, terpenes is going to be a massive arena. And for those of us, those in the audience who don't know what terpenes are, let's have a little quick lesson. When you walk in a field and you smell pine needle, what you're smelling is a chemical called pine needle. Or if you pass by some roses or some geraniums, you're smelling geraniol. That's a chemical which smells like a rose. Or eucalyptol, as you might imagine from the sound, is the smell of eucalyptus. Menthol is a chemical that makes the smell of mint. I could go on for hours. Terpenoid molecules with a couple carbon atoms grow that make and they're throughout the earth. That is in flavor and other part is called until cannabis. And interestingly, cannabis is one of the only plants in the world that is freak machinery that just happens to produce almost all of these natural on its and if you think about how people think of everything, cannabis is really the ultimate vegetable. And part of the reason it seems like it's good for everything is because a lot of the natural things on earth that are good for us as animals, cannabis has abundance. So if there's things that interests you, you can be ahead of your time. I mean, I think terpenes are still about years away from being a mainstream thing. There's still plenty of cannabinoids that we haven't touched that will become mainstream well before terpenes do. But I think ultimately you have to drive your knowledge from what's out there already, build on the history. You have to fight for yourself and what really drives you, because people around you are drawn to things that excite you and make you tick. And then lastly, I think you have to treat yourself well. And this is something that I think is a weird concept for Americans, different than people from other countries. If you go to Australia or many other Eastern European countries, they work so that they can live. They make enough money that they can have a happy life. They can have and the next big house and the next toy that you have to get. And that's not a experience. I think for a leadership part. If you want to be a cog in the wheel, that works really well. But I think if you want to stand out and make a real impact in someone's life or in the world, you really have to take care of other people. I hope that's I hope I didn't put people to sleep with that answer, but
No, I think that was a great breakdown for people that aren't familiar with terpenes. I think a lot of this information, people don't know what to trust or what to look for. And, I think that there is some level of comfort that is instilled in humanity for certain cultures and individuals of, well, if the doctor says.
Right, of course.
And so, that's, again, one of the many reasons why it's so important that you're here.
Thank you. No, it's interesting, the idea that we should eat vegetables and fruits. I mean, if we just take that simple idea, right? Like grandma told you should be eating fruits and vegetables. And your doctor probably said you should eat healthy and have your vegetables. But why? What's the next? Why is that? What is it about vegetables or fruits that you should be eating? Is it because they have water in them? Is it to hydrate? Yeah, but it's not that. Is it because they're high fiber? Because that's good for your poop, and okay, we all want nice poop. No, it's not that. There's something else that really we honestly through all of modern medicine we haven't really understood, and we as in normal people, but we also as providers, as medical specialists in science, haven't conveyed that clearly to the public. And really, guess what? It's terpenes. It's these things which act in our body in healthy ways and create safety and fight infection and help combat cancers and help fight oxidation and O2 radicals, oxygen radicals that harm our body, and actually fight against UV radiation from the sun that's pounding against us from the inside. And our nutrition system in and of themselves for the chemistry reasons. The why we should be eating vegetables. Imagine that. Like, it's such a fundamental part of being alive, and it's only now in the last really 20 years that this has become a conversation item. Like, that people understand, oh, there's this thing called terpenes, and now everybody understands it as part of cannabis. But soon enough, it's going to be, oh, this is part of all plant medicine. This is why there's that whole nutrition thing, and this is why we should be taking care of ourselves with what we eat.
Exactly. Please be on the poster for that. We'll give you a super mic. Real quick before we go in, a lot has happened, so I want to make sure that I'm catching everyone up. So what I did was I took all of our wet ingredients. We had our honey, our olive oil, our protein, gluten-free oat milk that has some hints of vanilla in it. We took, what else are the wet ingredients? The honey, and put it all into this bowl. Oh, of course, the pumpkin puree. Can't forget that. And I put that into this big bowl and I mixed it all with a whisk together. Oh, the liquid egg whites as well. And then in our dry bowl, we had our baking powder, we had our baking soda, we have our tapioca flour, almond flour, and the AP flour. All these are gluten-free. And I did a mixture where I sifted it in so I have a higher quality of actual flour. It's going to be a lot finer, which is going to make a huge difference in terms of having like really chunky or crunchy kind of cake versus something that is, you don't want that in a pumpkin cake, let alone a donut. So it's going to be nice and smooth and soft. So it's mostly AP flour, a little bit of almond flour, a little bit of tapioca flour. And then we added in the salt, and we have our pumpkin pie spice and our ground allspice as well. And I whisked that. And then we put that into our big bowl, slowly incorporated, added our pumpkin seeds and our rolled oats. And now this is what this is looking like without pouring this absolutely everywhere. Our oven is already ready to go at 375 degrees. We've got our walnuts ready, and we're at the point now where we're going to start candying them. So I've put about half a cup of the honey into this little pan, and that's what we're going to heat up. And that is where we are at this very moment. So I'm curious for you in terms of, what do you feel like you're happy with, if anything at all, in terms of the way the medical cannabis industry is working in Boston? You can also, of course, take it larger scale to the country, but I don't think I've had any Bostoners yet. And given that I'm a New Yorker originally, very interested in what's going on in Boston. And then what are the things that you would change if you could wave your magic wand tomorrow?
Sure. So a lot of people don't know, but in a country where cannabis is federally illegal, oops, I think I lost you.
No, I'm here.
Okay. Can you still see me on the restream?
Yeah, I can see you everywhere.
Oh, interesting. Okay, you went totally black, but we'll go with that. So anyway, in Boston, I'm sorry, there are different regulations, and the local legislator of a state gets to decide what is in their state for cannabis, what diagnoses qualify you to have a medical access, what standards there are for toxicity, meaning bacteria or mold or dirt that might be in the cannabis. They're all different in the U.S. In the states at least that have cannabis access. Massachusetts has done the bold thing of being the most strict standard set anywhere in the country. It's a little bit exception, it's a little bit deep end. The amount of bad stuff you have in your cannabis is actually 1,000 of what OSHA would allow in an office building. Like not only can you not have just regular clean stuff, it has to be meticulously clean, like really insane. And obviously that's wonderful. There's a peace of mind there for even the stuff we don't know, the sort of micro elements of badness. Even that's not allowed. And for a state that has institutions like Harvard and MIT and all the research institutions in the postgraduate university sort of mecca that is Massachusetts and New England, it's wonderful. It's great for science. For the industry itself, it's an opportunity. And Massachusetts, really will be the epicenter, the sort of Silicon Valley of cannabis in the world. I mean, we have been for medicine. The hospitals in Boston specifically are some of the most well-renowned in the world. But that is also going to be true of cannabis. I think there's something about the governor's pride, that I've seen. He really wants this to be a central cannabis, depot. He wants to have Massachusetts teach other states how regulations can be done to keep their citizens safe, and we've already seen that. Actually, California has copied in some degree some of the regulations here just all of December of last year. Other states are following suit, and in some ways, other states have done things better, differently. New Jersey, for example, is already starting to get cannabis covered by insurance. Massachusetts, although we are an insurance leader with 90% of our population covered by health insurance here, we've fallen behind and in that respect, for cannabis being covered by insurance. Done things incredibly well, and I think the codes could do better. Your question, what this would mean? You know, I wish that we didn't have artificial. You know, I'm in a unique position that I can help people no matter where they go. Someone's in another state, all I have to do is pick up the phone or dial in the Zoom, and I can help anybody. But that's not the case for the industry itself. And if products are made here, which happen to be wonderful products, really, meticulously made and very safe, they can never cross borders. And that's a huge, silly problem. And I think whenever we set up these artificial barriers, people get hurt or people don't get the benefit that they need. And I'm constantly hearing from families. I happen to do pediatric cannabis as well, and I hear from families in other states where they don't have access, and they want to move because they need access. And that's just so tragic to me. It's terribly tragic. So I guess I wish there was more medical advice or direction in government. But that's a dream. That's my magic wand idea.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's interesting to hear about Boston. I didn't realize that it was that strict, but it's like I think a lot of the strictness is to our detriment. Like that's a very high number of people that have insurance, and even if we get things covered by insurance, which I do believe should happen, we still have the issue of not everyone has access to insurance. And of course, people of color built this industry. They built the legacy market, and so many of them are therefore, we're kind of like creating the same problem over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So I would love for there to be the medical understanding, and also having the medical, the doctor's understanding. Like I have doctors even that just like don't even, no, Sarah, I'm not talking to you. Alexa, stop. I'm just gonna unplug it. It's just gonna keep talking. Like they don't have an understanding of cost of things. They're like, well, we'll just order this and that and whatever. And I'm like, is it covered? How much does it cost? What is this going to be like? Like, you can just go to physical therapy for, several months. Well, can I? Like, are you coming back to earth as to where people are at in terms of what's accessible to them? So I like that, we're having this conversation, because these are the types of things that can really be focused on and coming into the insurance aspect. But I do think that is, a step forward. I'm looking forward to a time where we're taking 2 steps forward, not 3 steps back every time we take a step forward. You brought up something that like my ears were ringing. You said pediatric cannabis care. Please dive into that. What exactly are you seeing? How are you supporting them? Are you finding parents resisting, or are they at a point where they're so desperate with what their kid's going through that they don't care? What's happening?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about cannabis. I do want to mention one thing, which is, the cannabis industry is only a massive industry. It only exists at all because of what the people have done to fight for it. You were talking about sort of cannabis being built on the backs of mostly non-white, poor, underserved populations. And the truth is that all of the industry wouldn't be here if the government had its way. Right now, cannabis is what it is against every single possible odds. I mean, it is illegal from the federal level. It has been taught as evil and harmful throughout medical schools. Every system that we have, the education system, the athletic system, the government, I mean, it's against all odds that we live in a world that is embracing cannabis now. So I think really the truth is this is an arena of possibility. And anybody that wants to do something in cannabis can make it happen. I mean, the opportunity is really, once in many lifetimes. In terms of pediatric cannabis, I saw another problem. I saw in Massachusetts, as well as every other, that there are a lot of pediatric patients, folks under 18 who have serious medical conditions and need options. Either the medicines or the therapies that they're trying aren't working, or they don't like the side effects that come with them, or they just don't believe in it, for many reasons. They want alternatives, and there are plenty of alternatives out there, and cannabis is an option in terms of everything that we know in terms of science. Scientifically, it makes perfect sense and healthy and non-threatening and non-toxic. But there isn't a lot out there to guide us. So it's, if we think cannabis medicine is pioneering pediatrics, it's really the laser edge of that. And I am seeing, I don't know, probably several hundreds now, if not thousands of pediatric patients. The youngest patient I have is 6 months. Wow. Coincidentally, the oldest patient I have is 104. So it's really the full spectrum. The vast majority of the patients that I see, the pediatric patients I see, are very ill. These are kids either with terminal cancer or severely debilitating diseases that run the gamut. I mean, they're folks with seizures. It's sort of everybody knows that cannabis kind of works in those circles, but they're also kids who are struggling with a deficit disorder. They're kids who are just struggling with depression and personality. There's a full range. I mean, almost every medical condition that I would see as a primary care doctor, people are interested in seeing, well, is cannabis going to do something? Is there some relief there? And it's amazing. I mean, I have front row seats to watch the birth of this new medical specialty. And hopefully some hand in guiding it to become, mainstream.
That's remarkable. I mean, especially at 6 months to 104, bless them all. Like, I just can't help. My whole body is literally warm, and I'm just so happy because it really has me feeling so helpful. I had to get to being super sick in adulthood and being able to take control myself, and New York getting medically legal before I had the slightest bit of my, parents who were helping keep me alive. I was totally bedridden and completely non-functional. They had no idea what was going on with me at the time. In order to have access, to have support, I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. And the experience that I had was terrible compared to what I believe my experience would be like if I was talking to you or in your office today. And that's in large part because of who you are and how you're being. And it's also in part of because of that was like probably 6.5 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Lots happened in 6.5 years. It also, I'm curious if you have thought about this or what you've seen, because I don't know how long per se you've been seeing some of these patients, but so much of what I believe about what's not going well with me health-wise, I think has a lot to do with constantly being drowned with Z-Paks and other antibiotics the moment that something was going on with me as a kid. And when I think about what could happen, like if that wasn't the first thing, and having something that's in alignment with your body and your endocannabinoid system, the potential for expanding on life and quality of life long term because of having that option. Like, do you see that happening or a possibility of that happening? I know it's pretty potentially early to tell.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think part of the true benefit in cannabis medicine is not just the cannabis itself, but the lessons that we're learning from it. I mentioned the sort of plant medicine and understanding why vegetables are healthy. I mean, that's a pretty basic thing that cannabis has really helped us open our eyes to. I think also at the same time, we're learning about the human body, and oh my God, there's this whole system that we weren't paying attention to. Imagine that looks gorgeous, man. Does it smell good?
It does smell good.
Those,
I didn't want to interrupt your flow. I just wanted
no, I wish I could smell it. That's what we need next. Someone needs to invent the smell-o-visions.
I agree. Or if I could just pass it through Mike TV.
Yeah.
Mike TV style. But yeah, it's going well. So, but continue. You were saying.
So I think we're having a frame shift. Our mindset is changing about what is healthy for us, what our body's needs are, and there's also a sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but there's a sort of psychic element of cannabis. There's an appreciation of more than just what your body is going through, and that's partly sleep and helping people kind of better sleep, and part of it is help people relax, feel peaceful and calm and comfortable, and those are things that doesn't really pay attention to. Like, you don't go, your doctor's not asking you, oh, are you feeling comfortable? Are you at peace with your life? That sounds like a death conversation, right? Like, once all up, are you comfortable? And that's what have we lost? That's all that life is about. It should be about your comfort, your being who you are and being happy and comfortable and successful, how you define it. And that's like nowhere to be seen in medicine these days.
I agree. It's not. And so the question is, I guess, how long and what's required in order to change that? What do you think?
Oh boy. I think education, I think there's so much that's gone wrong because we forgot how important it is to teach people to learn. And I think that's part of the solution to a lot of problems, at least in this country, but really across the globe. Just underappreciated. I think also, we need a kick in the teeth. I think as a human species, to realize that we can't just hurt people. We can't just care about our own, what looks like us or acts like us. That we have to embrace people's differences, and that's the only way we're going to succeed. And that's a radical concept for people. Like, what? Someone that looks different than me might have something to offer me, and that's shameful. I think that's just totally depressing.
I agree. At the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
And if we can really just get back to that, I think it would solve much of anything, truly. What would you say are the most common, I know you spoke about, epilepsy. What are some of the most common symptoms and illnesses that people are coming to you, and what are some recommendations that perhaps could give, light and hope to anybody listening who has ailments as well?
Sure. So most common ailments are basically three categories. So sleep is, usually number one, and then pain, kind of number two. Pain covers a lot of different things, from headaches and back pain to your leg hurts or your back hurts because you're getting old, or your joint hurts. Everything can hurt because we're human. But sleep and pain, and then anxiety and depression are pretty common. Stress is sort of becoming normal in our culture. It's funny, people question, oh, what about all these kids or these people getting high and going to work? Are they going to be, what's going to happen to these people who are high at work? And my thought is always, what the hell? Like, people are stressed out and they're sleep deprived and they're going to work, and that's okay. Like, they're driving, what? Our priorities are messed up. But that's an aside. It's, I think the main things that people are dealing with are not the rare diseases. The most common things people come in for are the common things, the things that we all struggle with. Mm-hmm. Good night's sleep, feeling comfortable, feeling calm and non-stressed. In terms of what people can do with cannabis, there's really no path that seems dangerous. So that's thing number one, that this is a safe choice for people to explore. The interesting thing, I was just talking about this earlier this evening in a meeting. There are a lot of people who are prescribed what are called benzodiazepine medicines for anxiety and stress. They're very strong and they work well, but they can be addictive. You know, you can find them helpful, but then you need stronger doses or you need more to achieve that same effect. And in the studies that are out there and published, about 40% of people who are on benzodiazepines and or cannabis, 40% of them end up off of the benzodiazepines, enjoying cannabis for the same relief, which is extraordinary. Actually, that is out of this world awesome.
I'm one of them.
You are awesome, though. That's funny. The thing I wanted to just add, in my clinic, and I'm blessed to have patients who allow me to learn about them and sort of help me learn sort of through their experience. My patients, actually, 80% of them who start on benzodiazepines get off of them. And the difference, I think, between those statistics, the 80% and the 40%, is not because I'm some magical thing. It's actually just guidance. And I think people need support, they need advice, and they need counsel, and they need to understand, they need to learn about what the options are out there. You know, I see the 40% difference between my patients and the patients that are in formal studies. Those are patients who dropped off, like they try things and they don't work, and they get frustrated, they don't know what to do, up to the ponytail and the Hawaiian shirt behind the counter. Those people drop off. They're not to embrace the cannabis, help you with it. So I think that's really the future of medical cannabis. The process where someone who wants help and doesn't just want to explore it themselves, they can get an added layer of expertise on top.
I think it's definitely happening, and I'm definitely hopeful. I'm curious, within what you just said, what are your thoughts, if any, on the new program, the new goodness, did I just blank at what college it's at? The new pharmaceutical program
In Maryland?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. No, I mean, I think it's wonderful. It's a huge challenge. So for people who don't know what we're talking about, there's a wonderful university program that gives a master's degree in cannabis education, gives a master's degree in cannabis and education around cannabinoid, terpenoid options in plant medicine. It's amazing, and we need an army of people who are more knowledgeable about cannabis. Part of the tricky thing is that it's a moving target, and we are learning more and more about cannabis every week. I mean, I am mining the literature that comes out for cannabis because this is what I put on my drive for free. And there's more to learn all the time, and there's no way that anybody could keep up with that by taking courses. The courses have to be prepared by a professor who knows about that material, and that means the material is already maybe 6 months old. And the needle, the road is running, and there's so much more being learned. At some point we have to catch up, and I think that hopefully there's a continuing educational component to people, and people who are learning a lot can continue the process. So I think it's A, on the one hand, wonderful, and B, on the other hand, I see the concerns coming out the gate. But I have the luxury of really swimming in this pool, so I see it. I think people will. The culture needs to move. You were talking at the beginning about how things move and progress slowly. That's a good thing in medicine. We don't want wild swings of changes. We want people to stay healthy. We want our leaders in the medical field to be consistent at embracing new things. And I think it has to happen that way in cannabis too. People have to learn what's out there. They have to first understand that we all have an endocannabinoid system, that it's a good thing, that it's not a harmful situation. And then over time, expertise will be fine-tuned. And I think at some point we're going to have stores where you can really pick the type of cannabis that will fix what ails you individually. I think we will get very precise, almost in the way that we're seeing genetic medicine now, where people can assess their own genotype for cannabis to be able to hit that with product. We're not there yet, we're a long way off, but I think that's what's coming.
Oh, I agree, and I agree with that last bit especially. We're on our way. I mean, my next question for you is, so I've seen already now there's at least one testing that you can get a full out test using your DNA testing, either through them or connected, that's going for your endocannabinoid system. And
right.
You're shaking your head.
We are nowhere near that capacity. It sounds very cool and it's super science fiction, and it seems really amazing. And oh my God, I can have this window into my endocannabinoid system. We don't have products yet that can match that window. So just because you see something, just because you see results on a test doesn't mean that you should get that test. It doesn't mean we have solutions for that problem. I think for people that want the satisfaction of understanding themselves in that way, for the glory of seeing something that didn't, I think there is opportunity, and we are scratching the surface of understanding how our genes interact with our environment and the setting of cannabis. But we are not just our genes. We are so much more complicated than that. Like I guess an analogy would be, if you're someone who doesn't have ears or eyes, would you want to go to a sports game? Would you want to go to a museum? And it's on the one hand, it's very exciting. The idea of seeing people run around and hear the screaming and hear the joy and feel the joy would be wonderful. But if you can't experience that, if there's nothing you can do to participate in an active way, and maybe that's not true, because there are people who don't see and hear, and they can still enjoy it by someone touching them and explaining them to the game. I mean, we've all seen that YouTube video. But it's pretty rare and pretty for most people, most of the time, it's not going to be what they hoped it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I get that it's not an immediate, ticket to success. But for example, like for me, who's pretty honed down, at least so I thought, on the terpenes that I need and the dosing and the amounts, like for me, the ECS is so important for me because a lot of my issues are autoimmune, are directly impacting my vestibular, and my system is totally constantly out of balance, and all I want to do is balance it. And I've had the privilege of seeing some of the best doctors in the country for all of the ailments that I have, and I get pretty tired by now when I'm hearing that they don't know what to do with me. Mm-hmm. Or I've been referred to a lot as a difficult case. Mm-hmm. Or you have this going on and that's not normal. Thanks. That super helps and makes me feel lots better. And so when I saw that this opportunity to have a breakdown of what terpenes could work, what dosing could work, does it mean that I'm going to have the customization that we're looking for? No. But it does give me an ability to have a little bit more control in terms of dosing and the things that I go after. Don't you think there's merit there?
Yes, there's merit on a couple levels. One, your aspiration that it should work, your hope that it will work, your expectation that it will help you. I in medical circles, sometimes that's called the placebo effect. I call that endocannabinoid action. And actually, your placebo effect, I think, as we understand it in science, is very likely to be governed by the endocannabinoid system. The fact that people with the same product can have either a good experience or a bad, there's to be said about cannabis amplifying where you're coming to it, and amplifying your mindset and your expectations. From that perspective, I think it's great. As long as you find benefit out of it, wonderful. But there are a couple things to know about advising. that relate to sort of this scenario. You know, if you have product on an empty stomach, the experience is different than on a full stomach.
Yeah.
If you are well hydrated or not well hydrated, it will make a big difference. If you had a fatty meal with a lot of oil or fat in it, your experience of cannabis will be different. If you have a lot of vegetables in your diet, if you get a lot of, I mean, I could go on for hours. There's so much input into your endocannabinoid system. There's so many variables that change because you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or because you ate something different, or you exercised. That the idea that some hidden dictionary can tell you the answer, can sort of be your sole guide, is deceiving. And I think as much as it might give hope to people, it will also really disappoint people. Just in the same way that genetic tests in modern medicine, most genetic tests, there are some genetic tests which actually have revolutionized illnesses and treatment. We're not even in the ballpark when it comes to cannabis. You know, there's 21st century science being applied to 14th century medicine. And we are not ready for 21st century genetics in medical cannabis, in my view. I mean, you know, I have to be humble that I'm here to learn too. But from everything I have learned, I don't think we're anywhere near ready.
It's pretty soul crushing to hear.
Oh no, I've spoiled the meal, huh?
Well, no, I mean, it gives me things to think about, because, you know, of course, like I'm very, in my health journey, I'm constantly balancing the fact that spiritually, I, and authentically within myself, believe that it's true that the universe is infinitely abundant, and I believe that we have the ability to heal ourselves, and that we're significantly more powerful than these meat suits that are ultimately holographic. And I'm balancing that with the fact that we have a meat suit that's holographic, that somehow has science attached to it, and that, you know, certain things work and certain things don't, and we have an endocannabinoid system. And, you know, when I saw this test, and I was like, well, I have some degree of understanding of my breakdown in these terpenes, and I'm already looking at these things, but it's like, I've been having, for example, you know, a total vestibular meltdown for basically the last like 2 weeks now, where honestly, I don't know how I'm even standing right now. I think it's pure will at this point. But, you know, I have something called persistent postural perceptual dizziness, which is like, for those who are like, what were all those letters? It's understandable, because it's a diagnosis that was differentiated from a lot of different balance and vertigo and neuropathic disorders in 2017 by both UCLA and Mayo Clinic. And they literally, I just spoke to them 2 days ago, and in the past, you know, 4 years since they've diagnosed me, they have 0 updates on any progress. And so when I found this test, I was like, maybe I could figure out, you know, something that I don't know, because I'm so desperate to balance myself, and I don't know what else to do. And I've done it everyone else's way. I've taken every medicine and done vestibular rehab and all of that, and I know that a lot of the things I do really help me, but I know that cannabis has been revolutionary for it. So I guess, what do you think is going to have to come?
I'm not taking any of that away. I'm not trying to disagree with any of that. I think that all makes you know, perfect sense. I think the only thing I'm trying to say is there is no master key to this puzzle. We are a long way off to understanding how many pieces there are in this puzzle. And we have a couple more pieces, and there are plenty more pieces that are coming up now as people are interested in cannabis and learning about the words and understanding the concepts. But I guess I'm just saying that genetics is a small piece of the puzzle. I wouldn't even say it's in the majority of importance. And honestly, your experience with cannabis, the benefit that you've encountered is proof of that pudding. That, you know, nobody is there to read that genetic map for you. Nobody is guiding you with specific products that have those terpenes in abundance. I mean, it's haphazard because there's other things that are there too. I think your success is really what I'm getting at. That this is still a very test and learn approach. But it's people like you that are telling your story, explaining to other people that there is benefit there that supports the science, and not the other way around. It's not people getting a genetic test saying, oh, I guess I should try cannabis, and then figuring out that it's helpful. Another way of understanding it is, if you are concerned about your cholesterol, if you have a bunch of, delicious pumpkin gluten-free donuts, and there's a lot of, butter and fat, and then you have a bunch of cookies afterwards, and then you go have your cholesterol tested, guess what the test is going to show?
Yeah, it's skyrocketing.
Right. And that's not a true representation. You are at a baseline. And if you're testing for things like terpenes in your body or your genetics actually isn't always the same either. Your genes in your body fluctuate. They change over time in small ways. And different cells sometimes have different maps, and we have mutations as we get older. And that's how we have children that are not clones. I wish that science was more advanced. I wish that sort of science fiction seemed real, that we somehow had magical keys to understanding. But we're still, if we were building a car, we barely have understood a bolt.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we're definitely super early on, especially with, what you were bringing up earlier about constantly having to learn. Mm-hmm. I mean, like I was literally just thinking earlier today as I was thinking about, some of the things that we may talk about. And I was like, God, like I used to be so aggressive about consuming as much material that I could understand because like I don't have the background you have or a science researcher. Like when I look at scientific papers, I'm stressed. They're incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
And confusing. But I realized that it can be so overwhelming. I imagine that your patients are asking for resources that are, in some digestible form for them. What are some of the resources that are out there that you like for those who need to get a grasp on the basic level?
So I've tried to hoard them all and build my own. And one of the things that I love to do is digest and translate the medical literature. And I have a blog, for example, that is basically taking one paper at a time and translating it into jargon-free English. What are the main points that we're learning from this paper? How does this apply to everyday life? I'm all over Instagram now and Twitter and Facebook, trying to share what's happening in the medical literature in language that everybody can understand so that everybody can talk about it. How does this apply to me? What does this really mean? How do we get this? All those kinds of things come from patients who finally understand. And I started a YouTube channel where I'm teaching, either myself talking or interviewing other people, sort of like we're doing here. And actually I have a huge project coming up in the next couple of weeks where I'm bringing regular patients, people like you, onto screen and not just to tell their stories, but to really help them understand, help them guide the audience with an understanding of what normal people in cannabis means and how it can be such an easy part of everyday life and it's not anything scandalous or dangerous or worrisome. And I think that's going to be a real hit. We all see cannabis and celebrities and all the hoopla for what it can be in movie land, but in everyday life, people are finding tremendous success, just like what you're describing, and I'm sure what your video casts are all about. But people need to see that more, and I think you and I need to screen this stuff on mountaintops and really help the world see what it's been missing for the last couple hundred years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an incredible project, and I'm on board. I mean, blast off. Like anything that can bring things into a digestible way and make it accessible. You know, because even it's like, for example, like the certification that I got for cannabis education when I first got to LA now, which was a little over, I guess, 5 years ago now, or almost 5 years in February. I've lost track how long I've been here. But basically, it was laughable compared to what's acceptable now. And what's wild is like at that time, it was totally acceptable. Like that helped me get in the industry. That helped me get to a dispensary job. So that I had at the time. So I mean, it's I think anything that that can be done in that format and blasting it everywhere is the most accessible and most important way. What would sorry, go ahead.
Another engine, I guess, that I'm building. I have a team and a new company called EO, and we are building a digital therapeutic for cannabis, a sort of companion app, so the people who are interested in helping themselves with cannabis and don't know what to do can have personalized guidance in their pocket. I mean, imagine you can go into a dispensary and you have a prepared shopping list, which is appropriate for your needs based on what you are looking for, and can help receive your feedback and adjust over time so that your experience is continually ideal. I mean, that doesn't exist. I mean, we kind of want that for regular medicine, right? But you know, it is happening. The company's been, we're seeing overwhelming appreciation and interest in what we're doing from almost every angle. The doctors want to see it, and the doctors want to know what their patients are doing to be able to help them. Of course, love the experience. The dispensaries want to know what these people are doing. Everybody's up on learning about it. That's what this company's all about.
Oh, that's amazing. What a relief that you're doing all the grunt work. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of, I like my hand in lots of different pots, so to speak.
What advice do you have for medical practitioners or those who are studying to be medical practitioner who are interested in getting into the cannabis swing of things and offering that?
I think ask around, learn around, see what other people, that you think of as mentors, see what they think. Learn as much as you can yourself. Reach out to me. I'm pretty out there on socials. Feel free to DM me for people that are interested. I'm happy to network and share resources. But I think, like we were saying before, take care of yourself and be bold. Really, this is the time, this is the place. Cannabis is an opportunity, and it's not without risk. You're going to have to, like anything, you have to stick your neck out, but no risk, no reward.
So it's good advice. Good advice. So in terms of all these projects that you have coming out, when can people start to have access to these sort of things? What is your ideal timeline?
I haven't even named half of them. I actually have a book coming out next year. Random House is going to distribute a book that I'm writing, basically about guided cannabis and how can people understand how cannabis applies to medicines, and what's sort of my take on how cannabis works and why it works and for whom it works and what situations, and just sort of the not the Bible, but sort of encyclopedia of cannabis as I see it. That's coming out next year. So hopefully that'll be on all bookshelves in America.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a cool opportunity. What was your question? How can people learn about these things, or what's?
When are people going to have access to all of these projects? And feel free to mention any other projects that you're working on.
I mean, most of the stuff that I'm doing, I'm pretty vocal about on the socials. So if anybody's interested in learning more, I'd encourage them to reach out on socials and connect and tell me what you're doing and see how maybe we can build something nice together. I mean, I love helping other people. A lot of my work I do is advise. I consult all the time. I'm an advisor on a big fund that's raising money to try to support cannabis ventures. I help, consult with a whole bunch of different academic groups and companies that are trying to do good things. Listen, my kids are fast, and we are 11:15 here on the East Coast.
Yes,
so
I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna bow out, but I appreciate the time and energy and sort of.
I appreciate you. Truly, I'm really honored that you came on the show. It's so important to have your insight, and I'm really looking forward to your book and all the projects that you have coming. Please, everyone, go and follow Dr. Caplan at Dr. Benjamin Caplan. Is that your handle pretty much everywhere?
So it's at Dr. Benjamin Caplan on Instagram. It's mostly at Dr. Caplan, DrCaplan, and everywhere else. So Twitter and Facebook and actually on Clubhouse too. For folks who are on Clubhouse, I'm there at Dr. Caplan. But follow me on Twitter. Actually, my Instagram has a link tree that gives you everything. It's all there. So at Dr. Benjamin Caplan, Caplan with a C.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Caplan, for being here. We're going to let you go, get some rest, and I look forward to having you on the show hopefully another time and seeing what's coming for you. Everyone, please make sure that you follow Dr. Caplan, and we'll see you next time. Get some rest.
You bet.
Namaste, my friend. Thank you. All right, friends. So it's just us chickens, as they say. We just put our donuts in the oven. I'm sorry that I didn't get to show you them before I put them in, but hopefully you could see enough up here what things were looking like. So this was what took so long was me attempting to get this. So once you candy the walnuts, of course, once it is a certain level of hard, it's incredibly difficult to pull this up. And so, so good though. So I put those in, and then I sprinkled in 1 full fruit slab per donut, and then I poured in the filling. I still have a whole bunch of filling left, so probably might even be able to make a whole other tray of donuts. And right now, putting it in the oven, 375 degrees, for another at least about probably 30 minutes. We're going to keep a close eye on them. We want to make sure that when we poke them through, you can use either a toothpick or a chopstick or a fork. You make sure that that's coming out clean. But we also don't want things to burn. So we're going to keep on watching that. In the meantime, I'm going to be cleaning up. If you're here, I'm sorry that we've had a lot of tech issues. I know people get frustrated. There's really nothing. There's only so much I can do about it when it's happening on someone else's side of things. I don't know them getting any more of this off before I wash it. This is super stuck. But hopefully you heard enough, and the replay will be up. Ooh, it was super chewy. So good right now. In any case, I thought that was a great conversation. I learned so much. And it's always nice, I don't know, it just lifts my spirits when medical professionals come on and are super positive about being in the cannabis space. Let me see if I can take a knife and slice into this. I'm going to grab a plate. Oh, I grabbed a spoon. If you're here, let me know what your favorite part of the interview was. hopefully this retrograde shadow is going to be done very soon. I think November 3rd or November 2nd. And so, hopefully, I will be able to get this off here eventually. But hopefully things will start to get better. And after Santa Fe, wow, my dentist would really be pissed if he knew I was eating this right now. After Santa Fe, when I'm in New York for a month, we're going to be taking off. So we're going to have the first official solid break for the Trannabis Kitchen. And during that time, one of the things that I'm going to be working on and through is any of these tech issues. So looking at what are the other ways that I could go about doing this that will be less glitchy. But the truth is that, you know, I see any, you know, no matter the streaming service, no matter the platform, whatever, like, there are issues. You know, it's just a part of the journey. Oh, come on. I'm making a huge mess. I'm determined to get this off. I may just have to soak it. Wow, it's really, really stuck on here. I don't know how much more I'm going to get on. I think that's about it. Still a good amount stuck on here. Just going to have to soak it, like I'm going to have to soak my teeth from this. I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning. While we wait. The 6-month patient, right? I'm glad that you were here to hear that. This is all super stuck in my teeth now. Not ideal. Yeah, it was really exciting to hear that. Absolutely. And yeah, I guess he may have also helped save me money because I was going to get that test, and now I'm going to be rethinking that. I mean, obviously, we can't have the direct specs, but I think as long as my expectations are managed, it could still be helpful. You know, one thing that I've learned in my medical journey is there is value for patients, for a lot of patients. There's value in getting confirmation. You know, I think human beings, it's by nature, we like to be validated, right? It's how we trust something is true. You know, it's how we verify information. And so, you know, I think having the information of, the terpenes to stay away from and the terpenes I'm going for, because in the industry, depending on where you are at, but if you are in a legal state, at this point, a lot of them are having the breakdowns, especially CBD companies have really gotten big on, I've noticed, breaking down all the terpene profiles, the cannabinoid profiles. And so, no, can I have something super customized? No. But if I, for example, see that, carophyllene is a terpene that I need to stay away from, then that gives me a huge indication as to certain strains that I should definitely stay away from, or why certain things aren't working, or, I think you just get to a certain point where you're looking for any of the possibilities, but maybe it's not time for me to do the test. I don't know. Super gonna have to think this through now. Exactly. Yeah, doctors who actually talk about cannabis. Well, Dr. Caplan is now, a doctor that we know, and we've had a couple other medical professionals on the show. We had Dr. Leah, one of the first episodes, one of the earlier episodes of the Trannabis Kitchen. We're with Dr. Leah, who is a pharmacist, advocate, and educator in the cannabis space. Very knowledgeable. I feel like we had one more. I think we had one more. And then I've had also, the healers, the coaches, the consultants. I want to get people who are more integration specialists and things like that. But if there are any medical professionals that are listening to this right now and are interested in watching what happens when you come on and chat with me on the Trannabis Kitchen, I would be honored to have you as a guest, because this information is critical. And when there aren't tech issues, you get to, hear a lot of the gems. The good news, so everyone knows, is that even though I saw that some people were saying they weren't able to hear it on Facebook, that's probably on your end. I hate to say, because on my end, my volume is on. It's on the lowest it can be, but once I have the recording is going to have everything pretty flawlessly, because actually a lot of the tech issues that I had on Facebook were more when I was going through Facebook, not when I was using Restream. And Instagram's actually on its own having its own tech issues. So, these are puffing up. And so, yeah. Welcome, Can Rock in the City. Love that username. And Luna all day. I love that. I love the handles. So at this point, if you've just popped into the show, we'll give you a little recap as if we were on Clubhouse, and we'll reset. So welcome to the Trannabis Kitchen. This is our 53rd episode. We already had our special guest on the show. He's on the East Coast, and he needed to leave early. So we're finishing the episode because we're still baking away here in the oven without him. But we had special guest Dr. Benjamin Caplan with a C on here, and he dropped so many gems as we had a really stimulating conversation about the medical aspect of cannabis and the medical community from his perspective as a medical practitioner in the cannabis space. As typical in fine form, Fruit Slābs is the sponsor. For those who don't know, Fruit Slābs is an organic, no preservatives added, gluten-free, kosher certified, vegan, I think I said all the things, edible that is discreet. It is a fruit leather, and it is delicious. They come in different flavors. They're about to launch a whole new slew of flavors, and they come in CBD and THC. These are the THC ones, 10 milligrams per square. This is what they look like. And what I am in the process of baking right now is what we've made here, which you can watch on the replay and learn how to make it, are gluten and dairy-free fruit slab infused pumpkin bread donut cakes. So they're in the shape of a donut, and the consistency I'm expecting to be kind of like partway between a cake and a bread. And these are what our fruit slabs look like. And these are the OG mango. That is the flavor that we're using. And it's just really pure mango, concentrate, fruit, whole fruit. They're absolutely delicious. And you can go to fruitslabs.com or fruitslabscbd.com and get yours now. Find out what dispensary it's in. If you're in California, Oregon, Washington, I think they're in Oregon now. Washington, those are where you can get a hold of the THC ones, and the CBD ones, just go onto their CBD website or go to the main website and then go to CBD, and you're going to be able to get those if you're in the United States. So we started with a whole lot of ingredients here. Also, I realized, yeah, I totally hadn't written pumpkin seeds on here, even though I knew that I was putting pumpkin seeds in. So let me just make sure I write that down. So we started by taking all of our wet ingredients and mixing those in this big bowl here. And then in a medium-sized bowl, we sifted 3 different flours together to make our own flour blend, which was a gluten-free AP flour, a gluten-free almond flour, and a gluten-free tapioca powder. Except that I think tapioca powder is automatically gluten-free. Although certified gluten-free is different, right? Because it depends on how it's and where it's prepared. And classic rolled oats and pumpkin seeds and spices, and we mixed that all together. And then we slowly mixed in the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients until it looked like this. So this is actually look at that, some pouring for you there. This is what our filling looks like. So you'll notice it's very similar to a cake batter. It really is very much cake batter like, and there's no yeast in it. So it does have baking powder and baking soda. Initially, I brought all of these measuring things here that I told you I was going to be, sort of measuring. But I did exactly measure 3 things. I measured exactly 2 things. The baking powder and the baking soda. I used 1 teaspoon of each, and I specifically measured those. Everything else was essentially intuitive, eyeballing, connecting with my guides. And once I made this, then what we did was I had already pre-measured out and pre-dosed and prepared the fruit slabs. So during the pre-show, which for those who don't know, the Trannabis Kitchen pre-show happens at 6 p.m. Pacific time. It is now only a 20-minute show. 20 minutes as I'm setting up, going over what's going to be happening in the show, going over the recipe. So if you're interested in really getting to know the recipe a lot more, because some episodes, like we didn't have as much time with Dr. Caplan, so I didn't get to talk as much as I was on the way of baking and cooking. And usually when I have a guest who is cooking or baking with me, it's a lot easier for me to go step by step over what it is that we're making. But that wasn't really what this show was about. This show was focused on talking to him for a short amount of time and going over things. So I went over things a lot during the pre-show as well as the beginning of the episode. So once that was ready, then I candied up some walnuts. So I took some walnut halves, already prepared in halves, and as well as some big pieces. And I took the organic raw mountain honey that I had. You can use any type of honey, just because I use that. But I like to do raw, especially if you could do unfiltered local honey. Local honey is going to be the healthiest for you. And so I put about a half a cup of that into a little pan, saute pan, and I heated that up, started to really heat it up hot. Then I put in my halves and I started to fold it over and over and over again. What I was doing was coating every single one of the pieces as well as actually helping this to candy, because typically when you're canning something and making a caramel type thing, you're using a lot more ingredients than just honey. But this honey has a very particular consistency, and the healthiest way to really go about it was to just use this raw honey. So I just kept folding it over and over and over, and this helped to thicken it and move it around, lowered the temperature to, having it be pretty low. And within 5 to 8 minutes or so of doing that, I was able to get, it turns a different color. So it goes from whatever the color of the honey is, and it gets to a darker color. And so the honey, even though the honey was thick initially, once I heated it up, it starts to get into a real liquid form, and then it thickens up again. And then what happens is it's so thick that there's pretty much not a lot of moisture that's still in there. So from there, I poured it into a cake pan because that was the closest thing that I really had to me that I knew it was eventually going to come off of. And I spread it out so that way all the pieces were kind of flat, and it cooled very quickly. That cools in like a minute or two. And you want to make sure that you are ready to roll with that, because if you don't break that up from the pieces when it's still warm, but pretty much cooled down, then you're going to have a lot of problem, and it's going to stick to the pan like some of mine did. And then we took the silicone donut molds. I have 2 of them. They have 6 in each one. And I took some of the olive oil, and I brushed very lightly, very small amount, takes about half a tablespoon to a tablespoon, honestly, is all you need to cover all of them. And I just lightly brushed every single one of them, especially around the nipple in the center, to make sure it doesn't stick. And then I took the walnuts and I took them in pieces, and I put that down on the first layer. Why? Because the top of what you saw before it went in the oven, the top of that is actually the bottom of the donut cake. So we're going to be flipping it almost like upside down cake style. So I put then we're going to have, hopefully a beautiful show of caramelized walnuts, and fruit slabs should be on top, because in the next hand was I sprinkled in all of the fruit slabs. Then from there, I poured in the filling, and I poured the filling completely to the top because I covered that entire tray with tinfoil. So if it spills over, it spills over. Some people may say, you want to only fill it 3/4 of the way, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, these are donut cakes. I want them to have the freedom to get as big as they can, and as they cool, they're going to deflate a little bit anyways. So at that point, set the oven to 375 degrees, which is what we have now, and I put them, namaste, Miss Jess, here in the oven, and I'm checking on them. They are getting beautiful and big. Thanks to the nipple that's in the center, what happens is that even if it rises and bakes up, it's not going to close in on itself. In other words, you are going to have the hole there so that it is a true donut. So, namaste, that boy bug. Good to see you. We have our pumpkin bread donut cakes already in the oven, and we already had our special guest here, Dr. Benjamin Caplan. We had an incredible conversation. So if you have just come in, the show has been going on for an hour and 40 minutes, and you can actually go to the replay when the show is over, and you will be able to watch the replay on Facebook at Trannabis, on Twitter at Trannabis, Twitch is Trannabis Lifestyle, and Instagram, Trannabis Lifestyle. And so you'll also be able to see it on Chef Trannabis and the Trannabis Kitchen on Facebook pages as well. If you are like, why didn't I get notified? It's because my notifications aren't on for you. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you are following and liking my page, and then going into that little bell and turning those notifications on. You can also mark your calendars, because this show is happening. The pre-show, the Trannabis Kitchen pre-show, like I said earlier, is 6 p.m. Pacific time for 20 minutes now. And it's just while I'm prepping and setting things up. And then the actual full show starts at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Typically, my guest is able to stay the whole time with me. However, this guest was on the East Coast and is a doctor and has to be up super early. And so ultimately, while this show starts at dinner time for me on the West Coast, they had to go. The ingredient that was infused into the recipe was fruit slabs, cannabis. So we have THC, 10 milligrams of THC per a piece goes into a donut. Technically, this is actually a different these didn't hit shelves. They sponsored me and handed them to me. So these were test ones. So they're a little bit less strong, but the ones that you're getting on the shelves are 10 milligrams per. So it's 10 milligrams per a donut. They are a vegan, gluten-free, kosher certified, no preservatives added fruit leather. This is the OG mango. That's the flavor. And they come in different flavors. They have them in THC and CBD. And you can go to fruitslabs.com or fruitslabscbd.com and figure out what dispensaries they're in. And for the CBD ones, if you are in the United States and you are of the legal age, you are going to be able to get those sent to you as well. This is, for those who just popped in, what our filling looks like. This beautiful, beautiful orange. So our donuts are going to have, and do have, this beautiful color. And I'm going to actually be able, once the donuts cool down and I can move them, I should be able to fill, probably another tray or so. I did run out of the candied walnuts, so they'll just be plain ones, without nuts. But that's okay. So it'll be good to have a variation of the nuts and the no nuts. And I actually, maybe what I'll do is even make those non-infused, and just eat those, because I'm a lightweight and I'll have one of these donuts and or two max and be like good to go. We have about 4 minutes left on the timer. I had set the timer for 30 minutes. We're starting to get a little bit of a golden brown color. Now notice how I'm checking these pretty frequently, because, and they smell amazing. So the way that we're knowing these are starting to be done is, number one, we're watching them constantly, because this being the color that the food is means that you have an easier likelihood of making it difficult to see that you've burnt it or not. But if you've burnt it or whatever, you burnt it. So we're looking for them to get golden brown on the bottom. So you really need to pay attention and look very closely at these donut cakes in order to make sure that you see that they're golden brown, even because of that. So at a certain point, once this timer goes off, I'm even going to pull it out of the oven and get a certain, idea as to how things really are going, because you can only tell so much from looking from and through the glass itself. The second thing is that it smells amazing. Notice when you make something that smells delicious, like if I put my nose up to this, that smells super good, right? But away from me, I don't smell this, because there's nothing that's heating it up and really releasing all these, aromas to that extent. But once you bake something and things are baking through, that's when you smell something that smells like bread or a cake. And right now I'm getting just a flow when I open that up of all the pumpkin spice and the allspice, and that pumpkin puree that just really just wafted up my nose. It was so delightful. And we're going to have that caramelization as well. And once we take these out, they are going to sit for a little bit to make sure that they set and kind of solidify, because they're going to still be cooking a little bit while they're cooling down. And then we're going to flip one out and show you what they're looking like. And we're going to do a little bit of a taste test here. So stick around if you're interested in knowing what these are going to look like and taste like, or you can check out the replay, which will be available on Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. So I am super happy at how these are looking, because they're going to look really doughy, really nice and round. I'm grabbing right now some chopsticks. I don't have any toothpicks. I should really get some, because I just keep using chopsticks. But the thing is, like, even when I order from a restaurant that has chopsticks, and it says specifically, like, do you want chopsticks, napkins, or whatever, and I always say no, almost always say no, because I have enough stuff and I'd rather save as many trees as I can. But oftentimes they send me the chopsticks anyway, and so I make use of them by using them to check if something is totally done. And for those who don't know, I'm also on Discord now. So I've just started that up, and I'm hoping to bring some really exciting things to Discord very, very soon. So you can find me on Discord as Trannabis. I also have Trannabis Chi on there as well as a separate one. I'm just getting all of the kind of wooden splinters off. No one wants wooden splinters in their food at all. Okay. We have 13 seconds left. So I'm going to pull this out slightly, take a good look at it, and I'm going to poke and see if it comes out clear. Smells amazing. Okay, so see, when I pull it out, I can see the actual true color, and we're looking kind of like a little bit of a gingerbread. So we're definitely getting on the golden brown. We're going to poke one in the center. If you poke one on the outside, you are not really going to get a sense whether it's cooked or not, because the ones that are in the center are the ones that are really getting beamed down. So we're going to want to make sure that we're not overcooking. So that's why we're poking into the center one. And the good news is, because these are donut cakes and we're flipping them out, we're actually only poking into the bottom. All right, and pulling this out, we've got a little bit of a crumb, and it's still a little bit of a moist doughy. So this is going to need a little bit longer. My guides are telling me about 5 to 10 minutes. So we're pushing this back in here. We're going to set another timer for 10. And we're going to be sure that we are checking on these. Whoops, I pushed the wrong button. I do that all the time. Oh, okay, now they're saying 9 minutes because I messed up. And so as you can see, it's a little bit doughy. This is what we don't want. So if that was a dry crumb and I felt it and it was dry, then that would be fine. But what we got was something actually that had a little bit of wet dough. And so that is not what we want to be seeing. So with that said, does anybody have any questions? Again, you're going to be able to watch the interview over again. We did have some tech issues with Instagram. So for those who are wanting to make sure they caught every word possible, your best bet for watching this replay is going to end up being on Facebook at Trannabis, the Trannabis Kitchen, or Chef Trannabis. All three of those accounts are going to have this, as well as Twitter is Trannabis, and Twitch is going to be Trannabis Lifestyle. So if you want to make sure that you catch every word and have it all together, that is going to be your best route. So we're almost done with this. I'm pretty excited to take a bite of this. I've been thinking about this. You know what you all can help me with is I've been waiting to receive kind of a download of what it is that I will be making next week. Next week, my special guest is going to be the one and only Chef Roxy. It's going to be my last episode of the Trannabis Kitchen here in Los Angeles before I leave for Santa Fe. I'm super excited. And it's the Halloween episode. It's going to be a couple days before Halloween. And so I'm going to be wearing my costume. I'm not telling you all what I'm going to be yet. And yes, I do have a costume idea. I'll say that you'll never guess by me giving this totally random hint, but essentially I had ordered a sweatshirt in a particular color, and it came in a neon yellow. And I was just not wanting to return this sweater because I knew it was going to be a production. and it was the only thing of what arrived that I needed to replace. So instead, I decided, what can I do to repurpose this? And I realized that it would work really well for a particular costume. And it's a very abstract costume. And I'm really excited. I have to actually hand make the rest of it, but it's really not going to be complicated. But I haven't decided what I'm going to be making. And I don't know what Chef Roxy yet wants to make, but I know that it's got to be Halloween inspired. The good news is that for those who watch the show regularly, or for those who don't know, I had finally got a hold of a Chef Man air fryer, and literally the first time that I used the air fryer, it stopped working after that in the middle of me using it. And I literally just picked up finally the new Chef Man today. It was like a couple weeks production for me to be able to get a new one. I had to prove that I didn't do anything to break it, because I truly didn't. Honestly, I would own up to it. If I really broke it, then I really broke it. But like, I didn't do anything to break this. It just wouldn't turn on. So I'm literally staring right now at a box, and it has an air fryer. So that means that I have a whole other level of options. Fruit Slābs will be sponsoring, and I will be using a different flavor of Fruit Slāb. I'm actually planning on using a Fruit Slāb flavor that is not yet on shelves. It is a sour version of the OG mango. This is not what the packaging will look like probably once it's on shelves, but it's not yet on shelves. And it's called Gooshi Mango, Gooshi. And it's really, really good. I've had them already, and I was incredibly impressed with how this truly, has immediately this sour and then this sweet, like what you would get from like a Sour Patch Kid, but done in a way that's actually healthy and not a gummy, because these are #not a gummy. So I know that I want to use these because I haven't used them yet, and I've been attempting to figure out a recipe that they fit into, but I haven't figured out a recipe that has come to me yet that I really wanted to put something sour into it that's also Halloween themed. So if anyone has any requests or desires, I'm open. I'm gonna check these. Okay. We have smelling better and better and better. All right, let's check this one. Okay, it's like slightly wet still, but it is getting significantly drier, so that's great news. So by the time this timer goes off, most likely it's going to be completely ready to come out. Frankly, based on the fact that they're still going to be baking a little bit, cooking from the inside once I take them out as they're cooling down, because when you put something in the oven, especially when you're baking, you're heating from the inside and it's radiating out, right? So that's why the edges are often crispy, depending on what it is, and why often, even though the heat is radiating in, you have things cooking more so fast from the inside. Namaste, Todd. It's good to see you. We had special guest Dr. Benjamin Caplan here. He stayed for over an hour, which was longer than he said he was going to, so I was really happy about that. But he's on the East Coast, which I know you're not over here as well, so it's late for him, and he went to bed. But he dropped major gems, and the replays will capture it all. And right now, what I have in the oven is this is the filling for these Infused. They are gluten and dairy free. They're not technically vegan because there's liquid egg whites, of course, and honey in there. And it's a pumpkin bread donut cake. So they're about to come out of the oven in literally about 2 minutes. Can't wait to show you them. And we're going to cool them down. So unfortunately, it's going to get a little loud in here because I'm going to turn this vent fan on. helping to kind of circulate out some of this heat. And we're going to cool them down a little bit, and then we're going to taste them. And so what I did was I caramelized some walnuts, and I used that as what will be the top. So it's, I'm expecting really a true caramelized, like what I'm hoping is that almost it's like the top of the donut like self-glazed itself in a way, where it's basically encased the fruit slabs and the candied walnuts that I made. And, that way you're really getting that crunch and that caramelization flavor as you, cut into or bite into your donut cake. So I'm really excited. It's going off in a minute, and it should hopefully cool down enough. This recipe was thoroughly off the cuff. Basically what I tend to do is I don't always do this, but what I tend to do when I'm doing something that I haven't done before, because I haven't done this before, is I look at a recipe for a baseline of something to make sure I know what the process is. And then usually I say, I don't like the way that they did it, and I do it my own way. My own way being, of course, intuitively, and my guides talking into me and just giving me the knowing. And I honestly feel like a lot of people say to me, Jamie, how do you talk and do a show and interview? And the reality is that I've been doing all this kind of thing for so long, and that because my guides do really come through and support me, I don't have to think about it as much. I'm kind of on autopilot in the cooking aspect, or in this case, the baking aspect. So we're going to take these out, oven off. They smell incredible. And they look amazing. So this is what they're looking like. This is the bottom. So remember, these are the bottom of the donut. So they're huge. They did puff up, which is really nice because it means that it's really going to give this round, really rounded donut experience. It's a donut cake, so I wasn't necessarily anticipating for it to puff up necessarily this amount. But I'm really, really quite happy, and it actually, I was pretty clean about it. I don't see any mess or overflow or bubbling that happened on any of the tin foil. So that means this is going to be super easy for me to actually clean and take care of. I'm going to turn my oven light off, and I'm going to bring you a little bit closer so that way you can get a up close and personal experience here. So you want to be careful. Don't do the things I'm doing. So first of all, first thing to know is tin foil is useful because it doesn't get very hot in the oven. Now, obviously, I don't recommend pulling it out of the oven and touching the tin foil. And, I'm not recommending you do this at all, but it is not going to be something that's going to be really hot. So it's already cooled down. It cools down really quickly. So this is something I can move. The silicone, however, that gets pretty hot. That's going to hold a lot of this heat. So you want to be really careful. And right now what I'm just doing is kind of shaking this around to see if my donuts are going to stick. So as I shake it, I can see kind of how my donuts are slightly pulling away. Even looking at them, the way that they baked, I can see that some of them are pulling away from the walls of the actual mold. And that's really, really great sign. Also touching them, I'm really getting this kind of slightly tougher bottom shell, but it's also kind of very spongy. So that's really great. And at this point, we need to let them cool. It's probably going to take, about 5 to 10 minutes for these to cool enough where I'm going to feel very comfortable pulling these out. You could wait as long as half an hour. I want to eat this and show you all as soon as possible, because we are at 2-hour mark now. But it's, it's got to do what it's got to do. But it tastes good. Tasting these little crunchies that peel off. This is the color of the dough. And the flavor is good. It's not overtly sweet, which is great news, because we're going to have a lot of sweetness from the natural sweetness of the fruit slabs and the candied walnuts. My goal was not to make this an over-sugared donut. Donuts and cakes separately, and donut cakes are often so sugary, so over-processed. We used no processed sugars here. All I used is this mountain honey, and that's, other than that, of course, used the fruit slabs, which have the natural sugars in it, and mango is a sweeter fruit. So I really didn't want this dough to be, that, or this cake to really be that sweet. So these are still really hot. It's also because this is hot, the stovetop. So what I'm going to do is actually move this over to the counter, because the counter is cold. I don't typically do this right after the oven, but it shouldn't hopefully destroy. Yeah, should be fine, because this is you're going to want to make sure, though, if you have a laminated countertop, you're not going to want to do that. And so this should help cool them down. The other thing that we could do is actually taking the actual trays of donuts off, which I hadn't really thought about. I'm going to do that instead, actually. Because even with it sitting on the countertop, it's going to still be in the heated tray. So very carefully, 1, 2, 3, boom. If you're going to do this, be very careful with the heat. You're going to want to put your fingers in the underside and do little pinchers in the center parts on either side of this in order to keep it balanced. 1, 2, 3. It's definitely a risk. See how it kind of started to break up these undersides. But that's what's going to help this to cool now. And again, it's still technically cooking as long as it's hot enough for it to cook. And that's great. So now this is not, dirty. I've tried everything to get these stains off of it, and it's just cannot be done. Cannot be done. So these are looking beautiful. I can already tell that these are cooling a little bit better. It's moving away from the mold, so we really just don't want to disturb them at this point. They're doing their own thing right now. I'm actually going to put this back here. And you could use, if you're someone who doesn't want a donut style. Oh, Max, good to see you, my friend. If you don't want a donut style, you could always do a muffin tin, or traditionally put this in a cake pan. It doesn't change anything other than the way you go about dosing. So using muffins is going to be very similar to this. The difference with the muffins, it's going to be reversed. So with these, because the muffins flip out like an upside down cake, the bottoms were prepared as if they were the tops. But with the cupcake, you're going to reverse engineer it. So you're going to pour in your filling, and you're going to want to leave a little bit of space so that way you can put your fruit slabs in there. And what I would probably do is take like a toothpick or something and kind of push the fruit slabs down so it's through the cupcake, kind of like funfetti sprinkles. And then you're going to then put the walnuts on that are candied and put those in. So it also means kind of you need to have a much prettier looking walnut if you want to do that. Welcome Planted Vision. Planted and Vision. I love that. We are at the end of our episode right now. We're just waiting for these pumpkin bread donut cakes that are infused with the OG mango fruit slabs. 10 milligrams of THC will be per a donut if you use one piece of fruit slab. And once they have cooled enough, I'm going to remove at least one of them, and we're going to do a little taste test. For those who I just saw popped in, this is what our filling looks like. And this is enough for me to make a little bit more. Unfortunately, I don't have more of the candied walnuts made. And I could make more, but I'm not going to. I'm too lazy. So I'm just going to pop these out and pour some of that in. And I've already got some containers ready. Storing these properly is critical in order for you to have them fresh. If you don't care about them lasting, more than 24 hours, you could just put them on a plate and cover them up. But what I like to do is I like to take completely sealable containers and immediately placing them from this into that, and then I put them into the fridge. This is going to keep them longer. After a day or two, if you don't complete them, or if you have enough of them that you want to put in the freezer right off bat, you could just put them in the freezer. In the fridge, they'll probably be good for about 5 to 7 days. The truth is, they're going to taste so good, I doubt that they will last that long for anybody. But it is good to know, and shelf life is very important. One of the many great things about fruit slabs is that they're shelf sustainable. They do not melt in very hot heat, which is one of the reasons why they're so great for baking, because a lot of infusions that I do with baking, I have to worry that there's a huge amount of cannabinoids and terpenes that I'm losing. And of course, I'm going to lose some, but the amount that I'm losing is probably a fraction because of how sustainable these are. They don't melt. They just hold their shape somehow. I don't really understand it myself because there's no gelatin in them. But it's pretty incredible. These are starting to get cool enough that for like a second, I can hold them underneath here, but they're definitely still pretty hot. Let's see here. Okay, so they are starting to kind of lifting this one up. I'm seeing that the shape is looking pretty good. So we're going to give them another minute or two to cool, and then we're going to flip one out and take a taste here. I'm super hungry and really looking forward to it, and I'm so sorry that you all can't have them now, but the good news is you have the replays, and I am going to be, of course, posting pictures with the recipe either later tonight or tomorrow, most likely, so that way you can spend your weekend making some of these. I really want to make something incredible for Halloween. I was kind of thinking, like, what if I did, a healthy version of the candy? And I don't want to make a gummy because putting fruit slabs, which are not a gummy, and their whole platform is partially based around not being a gummy, into a gummy feels, I can't do it. So what I'm thinking is, because I'm using the sour ones, like thinking about kind of doing like a sweet and sour Like, what if I made homemade Reese's cups that are vegan and gluten-free, which is a total dream come true because Reese's cups are my favorite, and I can't have them anymore. I can't have pretty much, probably better off, but I can't have pretty much like most of any sort of candy out there. And creating, using the fruit slab, the sour fruit slab kind of, on the outside. And if I use a dark chocolate or a semi-sweet chocolate, then the sour aspect actually could go really well. The question is it going to go well with peanut butter? So that's most honestly, like, since that came to me a couple days ago, I've constantly been thinking about it, and I'm really excited about the idea. So I will probably go with that, but I'm most likely going to, I don't usually second guess the downloads of flavors that come to me, but peanut butter with a sour, I don't know. Oh, I didn't even know there were keto ones. Yeah, so what I'm going to need to do, though, is make sure that the peanut butter tastes good with the sour of the mango before I go ahead and do that. So I may have to do a little bit of research, but you know what? The peanut butter being a little bit salty and nutty, it might work. It might really, really work well. So with that said, we've all waited long enough here. So I'm going to be very gentle, coming from the bottom here. There we go. Look at that. Beauty. Woo! So what ended up happening is not exactly entirely what I was hoping for. It definitely looks absolutely gorgeous. It's incredibly light and spongy. Check this out. Kind of, can you see how it's like jiggles? But I love that the caramelization effect did happen. So these darker splotches are the caramelization of the walnuts. And then these kind of springier, shiny little pieces are the fruit slabs. So it looks really good. Yeah, I like almond butter, but I would probably use a peanut butter, I think. I don't know. All right, my friends, let's taste test this. Wow. That's what I wanted. See how you've got a layer of the donut cake and then all of that softer kind of liquid? That's the caramelization. That looks gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. It tastes super, super light. The walnuts have a crunch, but it did something that surprised me that I'm really happy about, which is the walnuts are a little bit softer, and the caramelization that we did before, where it made them really hard and sticky, it melted back, and so it just kind of seeped in so that you have that caramelization effect. And it's incredibly soft. Like, see how jiggly and light it is? It's the absolute best balance of cake and donuts, the pumpkin is still the show. And the mango actually, like, just ever so gently cuts it with a little bit of sweetness so that you're aware that that mango is there, but it doesn't actually detract from the pumpkin for me at all, which is really important because these are pumpkin bread donut cakes. So you want to make sure that the pumpkin is really what's coming through. The spice is just like a hint. And in particular, that allspice is coming through. Wow. So good. This is one of the best things I've ever made, period. Very, very happy. So when I put out this recipe, I encourage you all to take this on. These are the healthiest that I give it. Frankly, pumpkin bread is not, overtly unhealthy. It's the processed ingredients that go into it and getting it processed that's unhealthy. So by doing this in a way that's gluten-free and dairy-free and using liquid egg whites instead of eggs, using the smallest amount of sugar, because I purposely like this honey that I'm using because this honey is actually very sweet. So I need very little of it to really pull off what it is I'm looking for. So this is remarkable, and I look forward to making many, many more of these. So thank you so much to everyone for watching and hanging out in the Trannabis Kitchen for episode 53. Thank you so much again to Dr. Benjamin Caplan. This was absolutely incredible. Thank you so much to Fruit Slābs for sponsoring as always. And thank you to everyone and everything that needed to exist and had to come together in order for this to happen. So grateful to the plant spirit for infusing all this with love and healing and all these ingredients. I feel so abundant right now and so much love and so satisfied. I hope that you have enjoyed this time together, that you've learned a lot. And again, you're going to be able to watch those replays to recreate this recipe and take some notes on the incredible gems that were left by Dr. Caplan. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week with Chef Roxy making probably these infused vegan and gluten-free Reese's cups and celebrating Halloween. So get in the Halloween spirit, get your costumes on, get your cannabis ready, and we will see you next time. Namaste, everyone. The Trannabis Kitchen is now closed. Love you, love you, love you.